Well, college students are kind of asking some deep theological questions, and they're not just asking. They're showing with their Bible, being like, can you help me understand this verse more? And so there's such a hunger. So we felt like, wait a second, if they're the ones evangelizing, they're getting them in. If we can create an environment, spirit-filled, presence-driven, filled with prayer, filled with a deep word, they'll keep bringing people. And I had somebody great tell me one time, they said that going from student ministry to college ministry, it's almost like, it's like going from PE to physics. It's like that mindset of, I'm not in like my 7 periods a day. Right. If I'm coming to church, it's because I want to be at church.
Yeah, that's real. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the GrowLeader Podcast, where we grow leaders that grow churches by helping them reach their full potential. So excited to have you on the podcast today. My name is Matt, sitting as always beside my pastor, PC. How are we doing? We have youth pastors everywhere today. There's just
I know. I'm very excited about today's podcast. And I was just actually looking around this beautiful studio, looking out at students out the window here of the studio here at the beautiful campus of Highlands College, and just grateful to God for what he's doing on this campus. It really is a miracle, guys. I mean, I'm watching these students go by with these big old smiles on their faces and imagining the call of God that is on their life and how that's being developed. And I could not be more happy and more fulfilled than right now. So anyway, glad to be here.
And if you haven't seen Highlands College, get here. Come see it. A couple opportunities coming up in the next couple of months. So we'd love to have you.
Yeah, very excited about something we're doing new this year at GrowLeader, and that is instead of a 3-day conference, which we are still doing, but that's always last week of July here in Birmingham. But we've decided this year, instead of taking Grow on the road in regionals, we are doing one regional in Miami. But instead of doing that all across the nation, we do 1 days here in Birmingham, but on one single topic. And so that we can really dive into helping churches tackle what I think are some really important topics that are bigger than just like a one session.
Right.
And I always had that tension whenever I'm teaching at the conference of like, man, I gave them an hour of small groups. What would it look like if there was a day of teaching small groups? And here's an hour of how to build a team. But really, I need 6 hours to teach you all that's important with a team. And we have 2 topics that we're gonna deal with in the spring that I would love for you guys to register and attend. And I'll let you know, these will sell out. We are already, in one of them, we're already knocking on the door, being completely full. And that is in March. It's on the 13th, if I'm not mistaken. On the 13th of March, which is a Thursday, we're going to have a 1 day just on the topic of the Sunday service, or for those of you who have Saturday, the weekend experience. And it's not all about Sundays, but if Sundays don't work, nothing works. And so we're going to talk about sermon prep. We're going to talk about series prep. We're going to talk about hallways, greeters. We're going to talk about checking kids in. We're going to talk about offerings. We're going to talk about altar calls. We're going to talk about worship. We have a lot we want to teach about the worship experience. We're going to talk about excellence. We're going to talk about, what I call the wow factor, that for those that are coming for the first time. All these topics, and just really, honestly, pastors, listen to me. If that one area of your church world gets better, I promise you a lot of other things are going to get better well. So anyway, that one's almost full. So be sure to register for this Grow 1 Day on March 13th. But there's another one, and I've got some of the guys that are going to be helping me teach this on April 1st, which is a Tuesday, April 1st. No fooling. It's really April 1st, okay? We're going to have a 1 day on the topic of student ministry, children and student ministry. Yep. And listen to me, this is not an exaggerated statement. I am completely convinced that if you get kids ministry and student ministry right, and you're one of the best in the city, best in the nation, I promise you people are going to flock to your church, because this is the place where parents are feeling it. This is the place where students are feeling it, even post-COVID still. I think they're still reeling from just the culture and the generation and, of course, that pandemic. And it's a great time to be great at children and student ministry. So anyway, that's the preview of where we're headed today.
Yeah, but for both of those 1 days, the goal of that day is obviously main sessions with Pastor Chris, but also you get to be with our team. So the experts that do this at Church of the Highlands each and every day, whether it's our worship team, our production team, our creative team, our campus pastors, but also our student staff and kids staff, and plenty of Q&A time.
Breakouts.
Yep. It's going to be great.
Which is why we have the people that we have on today. The Pastor Mark Pettus is hanging out with us, who has led students of all ages for many, many years.
And the father of the motion, I call it the motion movement, because it's one of the largest, if not the largest.
So we told a story today in our all-staff meeting where the first meeting where you pitched the whole idea of motion.
Yeah, it's actually healthy that we're actually at the table right now. First of all, I'm so glad to be here today and excited for these one days. I love PC. I love that vision. And I just know it's going to help a lot of pastors grow a lot of churches and reach a lot of cities. So excited. I'll of course, be there both as a participant, thank goodness, but also as a student. And so exciting. But yeah, so basically here's the story. Because he sold it one way today. I did go to Pastor Chris as a young youth pastor, full of vision. There's a long story there to change our city. And I went to him with this vision for a student conference, or at that point, just an event called Motion. And he actually blessed the first iteration of that. Although after the execution of that day, he and I had a strong conversation because it lacked excellence, safety. We're not moving down that list.
Anyway, a development conversation.
Yeah, so the true story is this. What he actually said is, we're never going to do it like that again.
Yeah, but
he made it better. You
came to me with the idea to bring it to the downtown arena, I thought, no, we're not doing that. Just first of all, I don't think we can fill it, and I don't think so. And I just was all the logistics of parking and just safety and all of that. And Mark, man, dude, it was exactly what we needed to do, and it's one of the highlights of the year for me now to walk into this arena and see 17,000 high school and college students worshiping God with all their heart. And my brother, you were right. I was not right on that one, and thank you for pressing me on it. So anyway, it's really something. And honestly, Mark is the father of student ministry here at Highlands, and there's been many iterations of what that's looked like, and I think we've gotten better even recently. Absolutely. Which is one of the things we want to teach on this podcast, and especially in this one day, because pastors, leaders, we really want you to be great at this. And then we also have to my right here the person who does a dual role at our church. He's the campus pastor at our Tuscaloosa campus, Roll Tide. Anyway, so right. Roll Tide. Anyways, for all of our Bama folks, but he has a phenomenally successful campus in Tuscaloosa, but also oversees all college ministry, not only for Tuscaloosa, but also for Auburn and Birmingham as well. And we have a move of God happening right now. This is Bubba Massey. Welcome to the GrowLeader Podcast.
Yeah, I'm absolutely, I'm thrilled to be a part. And first off, let me say, when you were talking about Saturday church services, I do want to say thank you for not having that here at Highlands, because that would be me by myself in an auditorium in a college town. But honestly, what God is doing is supernatural.
Yeah, even give them an update. Even recently, there's a move of God happening in college students, and not just at Highlands. I think it's happening across the nation. I mean, you can listen to these college football games and these, like, it doesn't matter who it is. They interview a great game today. Yeah, I want to give all this praise to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's on the rise. I mean, something's happening on college campuses.
But even that movement, like Ohio State has, like, they win the national championship, and I think in some of their pregame shirts, it says Jesus wins. Yeah. And they're wearing that on the field. But one thing we saw after COVID was, when everybody was like, how do we reach them? How do we reach them? We saw students wanted to beat the doors down. They were like, don't stop. Don't stop this meeting. And which is so beautiful about it is even the fact of them coming to church, like what they are craving. We can't get them to be digital in church. It's so interesting. We're watching them with it's paper Bibles. It is notes. It is how front. I think last semester, the campus I'm at alone, I think we gave out 300 paper Bibles after the service. Like they're hungry for the word is something real. And it's you feel it. And the energy of the campus, a Sunday, they're leading worship.
In fact, we have it's a Thursday night college service that's gone to 2 service times now.
So we were Tuesday for a long time.
Yep.
Just recently moved to Tuesday night, and the reason for that was just for a college town.
Yeah, Thursday to Tuesday.
Correct.
Yep.
So, but for so many years we did Thursday, but because it got so close to the weekend. Yep. Where it comes to they don't have Friday classes, they're going home. Well, then allowed them, on Thursday night.
But you're doing 2 services at this very large auditorium. You're doing 2 services on Tuesday nights just to fit everybody in.
Yeah, and so we actually just had our second double service, and we just had our largest attendance ever at one in Tuscaloosa, and had 1,900 college students.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's just at that one location.
That one location. And we're even learning from that, because we were talking on the phone the other night. You would think, man, college service started late. but the 6:30 service is the one that all the kids. So we're going, man, do kids want to come earlier now?
Right.
It's helping us rethink how can we get more students in the room all the time.
For sure.
And tell us, Mark, what's going on in high school ministry too, because we made a lot of adjustments. Kind of give an overview of some of the adjustments we made that I think are important. But talked about, we see a hunger among high school students right now.
Absolutely, and honestly, I've sat at different position seats, and for me now as a parent of teenagers, I'm more excited than ever about what God's doing in our young people, because it right now is truly a move of God. There's been different iterations. The heart of our student ministry has always been Psalm 92, get them planted in the house of the Lord so they can grow strong and flourish. Over the years, we've had this expression called Motion Night, which we still have, very evangelistic, a really big room. We've, from day one, because of your leadership, always had the small group environment, which is so great, that discipleship that happens there. But the piece we were missing, Pastor Chris, that really since COVID has grown is that mid-size meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, now our rhythm includes every month a large Motion Night evangelistic meeting. And then the next 2 Wednesdays, they're in that room locally at their campuses with a couple hundred students, and they still even break out in those small groups. Yeah. But when you hit all those different environments, what you're doing is seeing students go through a journey of growth, getting them planted in, and they're getting ministered to in so many different environments. It's powerful.
Yeah, it feels like, and the best way I describe it feels like kind of the youth group I grew up in. Or the one when I was a youth pastor that I led, that where I was going to the football games and I was going to their award banquets.
That's exactly
getting phone calls at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, where there's that local expression. Because of our campuses, we're still able to be a big church for the big gathering, but we also can be small church and have, we went and hired student pastors at every location, which we didn't even have enough leadership for all of our locations. Now we do. And man, now we're not just having, big gatherings, but really pastoring and discipling. And man, we're seeing the fruit of it.
So one of the things we learned from that, and I would love for you to talk about this, Mark, is the consistency in leadership and how much that matters with kids.
And that's what I want to do. I want to make sure the GrowLeader the podcast listeners are getting some of our tips that we like. Wait a minute, we didn't know how important this was, because we want this is what we do here at GrowLeader. Right. We pass on our best practices and things so they can go out and put it in their churches too. So what are we learning? Let's talk about high school first. What are some of the things we're learning that, like, man, churches, pastors, you really want to do this. You really want to emphasize this.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it, that youth group feeling. I think it's very important for parents. And we're talking about how you're going to grow your church through student ministry. Your students are going to grow, but also the connectivity that families have to our church, that their students are known. There's consistent leadership in their life. And I think that's a massive thing that we're seeing happen right now. I think the consistency of our schedule, where they know that, the first Wednesday of the month is our first Wednesday church service. Families go together. The next Wednesday, that is where they invite their friends. Hey, every month you're learning how to be an evangelist yourself. Invite your friends to this environment,
and we make it very evangelistic. We know there's visitors in the room.
Yeah, and then the third, fourth, and possibly fifth Wednesday, hey, come get discipled. So I think parents love having that full menu, PC, of all of those environments, and they really understand it because it does feel a lot like their youth ministry. And then since day one, something you've always taught us, and it's Motion, where the name comes from, is to at the same time activate them. Never let it be just about them. Through inviting their friends, but also discovering their purpose on the growth track. And then from a young age, our young people are in church on a Sunday morning, on the cameras, leading in kids ministry, that it always has that full, complete discipleship to also going out themselves and living the Great Commission.
Yeah, they're not the next generation, they're the now generation. Right. And so we let them on the stage leading worship, we put them behind cameras. But not only that, I think you guys know this story. One of the things I think I accidentally discovered when I was a youth pastor was the value of taking them on trips.
Yes.
Sometimes one van load at a time, or missions trips. Back in our generation, the world was a bit safer and travel was a bit safer. So we did a lot of missions trips. You have to be I think churches still need to do it, but they have to be very, very careful now where they go as it relates to missions trips. But I noticed that every time these students got on missions trips, that their purity their purity was higher, and that the less interested they were in, kind of the excitement that a Friday night and Saturday night gives you, because they were feeling the thrill. In our case, we were actually smuggling Bibles into East Germany back.
Which is wild. That is the wildest story. Like, you're smuggling Bibles.
I mean, and these kids were like, forget Friday and Saturday nights with my friends. Yeah. This is real living. Yeah, awesome. And I want to make sure especially youth pastors hear that. I think there's a thrill, and there's something, the exciting about serving God.
Absolutely.
And binding the devil, and, teaching them how to pray. And I found that the more I pushed them toward godly things and trips and missions and warfare prayer at my house on a Tuesday night, like that replaced that adrenaline they were getting from impure things on Friday and Saturday nights.
Something that changed my life, you said early on as youth pastor. And you taught it to me, literally day one, is that we're not a defensive youth ministry. I grew up in a youth ministry that was always like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And you told me day one, just give them something bigger than that sin. Give them something bigger than the party. And that's one of the best pro tips ever is activating them. Let them live their faith in motion now. And
I think we see that across the board in everything. You think about it from a Sunday expression to every midweek service that we have, the students feel like it's their service to own.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the smuggling Bible, the same mentality of them feeling like, this is my service to grow. This is my ministry to be a part of.
But tell us how it's different, how youth ministry is unique in college students, maybe different from high school students. Because I think there's a lot of churches that have student ministry, but I don't know if they're really focusing on the college campuses, and it's a great opportunity. So explain our version of college ministry.
Absolutely. So Pastor Chris always told us, if you can reach a college student or a college campus, you can reach the world, which we really took that to heart because in a college town, especially in Tuscaloosa and Auburn and other, Birmingham, these are students from all over the country.
Right.
So they're actually coming, whether they get a finance degree or whatever else it is, they're going and doing ministry because of the mission that they leave Church of the Highlands with. So in our college ministry, it's a little bit different because we actually have a every week gathering. College ministry functions around community. So I think Barna did a study and actually says from 18 to 29, they call it the dark years of your faith, which really it's the bottom of your faith journey for the rest of your life. And then you get married and you kind of come out of that. And we always just had that aggressive mentality of like, let's fight the dark years in college. So the mentality is we'll have a service that is catered to you. It's a live speaker. It is somebody that you're with. And in those college pastors, they live their life available to them. What's different about college world too is that you're leaving your family, you're leaving your comfort of your church.
Right.
So for us, they find mentors, they find parents, they find families. So a lot of them are in freedom groups and small groups with 50, 60-year-olds who've lived there for a long time and they get that world.
And also I've watched you lead and your team lead so well. You're taking them deep into God's word to talk
Very
about that.
deep.
You're not shy about that. You're not.
Yeah, they don't want the superficial sermon.
No.
They want
talk. Yeah.
No, so I think for us, every semester we do a book study. Every semester, we've taught on a series on the Holy Spirit. When students come in, it's funny because in student ministry, they're going to come to you and it's all about fighting temptation and, staying strong in their faith. Well, college students are kind of asking some deep theological questions and they're not just asking. They're showing with their Bible being like, can you help me understand this verse more? And so there's such a hunger. So we felt like, wait a second, if they're the ones evangelizing, they're getting them in. If we can create an environment, spirit-filled, presence-driven, filled with prayer, filled with a deep word, they'll keep bringing people. And I had somebody great tell me one time, they said that going from student ministry to college ministry, it's like going from PE to physics. It's like that mindset of, I'm not in like my 7 periods a day.
Right.
If I'm coming to church, it's because I want to be at church.
Yeah, that's real.
And so the moment they walk in, you feel it. You feel the presence of God.
And I try to participate at least every semester at all of the college campuses. And one of the things I tell them too is like, I know you have a pastor back home, and I don't try to replace your pastor. You have a home church, that's fine. But while you're away, we'll be your home away from home, and we do want you to lean in. We give you permission without any of the responsibilities, really.
Right.
We want you to lean into this temporary kind of faith family, and I'll be your pastor away from home for a season, and not ever really trying to replace that for those that are coming from out of town. I think that's really important. But they really do dig into God's word, but not only that, but outside of the meeting, the discipleship. And you're probably, honestly, Bubba, you're probably one of the best disciplers I've ever met in my life, because thank God for the meeting. But the truth is, I hear more about the gatherings that happen in your home and the way you've discipled students. Encourage pastors and leaders and just talk about that a little bit.
And let's be honest, it's God ordained your name is Bubba in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, you live in Alabama. Everybody needs a Bubba, okay? Let's all just say that, okay? So I'll say 2 things. One, I will say the value of every time, Pastor Chris, you come and speak to the college students, it's not the message is always amazing. The night's always amazing. What is so special about the night is every time you come down, you call them into ministry. And how many students, whether it's accounting, again, finance, or they're going to be a kinesiology major, whatever it is, they feel like I'm leaving here going into ministry in my life.
And I think that's important too, just because in college you just mentioned you may not be their senior pastor, but I think it validates.
Absolutely.
You do the same thing for Motion Conference. And
let me pause.
For senior leaders, that's huge.
Let me pause and make a comment about that and pick up the discipling thing right back. It's because I think we've lost environments in the church world where we're calling people to serve God with your life.
Yeah.
And I grew up in that. It seems like there was always an altar call and a place where I could surrender and lay down my life to serve
Personal
God.
commissioning.
Yeah.
And we're not really doing that anymore. Yeah. And that is, if God's going to call someone into ministry or into the marketplace that they go to serve God with their faith, it's going to happen in that time frame. It's going to happen probably in the junior, senior high school, all the way through the 4 years of college. That 6-year time span is the most important time to say that. And so I would encourage pastors and leaders, like, don't be afraid to have altar calls. And hey, if you feel called of God, if you feel like you're going to give God your whole life, and whether that's in full-time ministry, like it happened for all of us, or in marketplace ministry, but this is the time we need to do that and call them to big things. But anyway, get back to the discipleship portion. So beyond the service, into the home and things like that. Yeah,
absolutely. So the discipleship for us runs just like every other Sunday, and Church of Highland's whole vision of just for them to find freedom. So the beauty of that is for all of our students, I mean, they're running the same play every week that we run. So they're still doing a 12-week small group semester. The beauty of it is, like I said, whether it's families who live in the city, they're the ones leading them, or we're training these students. And you've got their peers who are doing, we do love equipping them with curriculum. It does help them with the workload of it.
Right.
But I mean, there's girls who came in, she got saved, did a freedom group, felt led to do a small group, and she had 90 girls coming. I think she's like doubling up services for a small group. It's like, but the beauty of, there's one word that I think we're seeing in this college movement, like you're talking about from other churches we work with and stuff like that. It's confession.
Yeah.
I think there's something beautiful, whether it's the end of a service, for them to have a moment to process and listen to the Holy Spirit, but also confess to their friends. And I really believe they're living out James 5:16.
Unpack that a little bit more. Like you're saying that we're encouraging these students to be honest with a friend or a spiritual leader in the church on the struggles they're facing and the mistakes they're making, and that there's power in that. Unpack that a little bit more. I mean, we know the reason I say that. I think we understand that language. I want to make sure everybody listening.
So what I would say is, Pastor Marcel, like the aggressive side of that. I think sometimes we shy away from giving them those strong action steps at the end of the service. I think if you're having that moment and you look to turn to your neighbor and tell them one area of your life that you're really struggling, they'll lean into it.
Absolutely.
Even if they're there for the first time or they come every single week, I think they just want it. I think they want that strong leadership, and then, they don't want the emotional drive. I think for college, I don't think they want the hype. I think they want lead me to deeper waters.
That's so good.
And if we can do that confession, we see the fruit of it.
But I think one of the opportunities too, while I was listening to you, Bubba, is that, because we do have the vibrant ministry in groups, it's a great opportunity for every person in our church. Like, if you want to lead a small group, listen to me. There are college students who would love to sit at your feet.
Be a mentor. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, for a 30-year-old couple or a 40 or a 50-year-old, that they would love to sit at your feet and ask questions. They're looking for really the example that the book of Titus says, where the older are teaching the younger. For us to be in those situations is amazing. So it's a great way not only to build solid ministry, but also to involve the people in your church into some vibrant small group leadership.
And you said one word that, confession. You're seeing a movement of confession, and I do see that in college students, even here at Highlands College. PC, another area I think coming out of 21 days, we have to mention, and I think this is high school and college as well, but definitely I'm seeing it in high school, is intercession. Yeah. Students are really attracted right now to if you teach them how to have an active prayer life. And we saw thousands coming at 6 a.m.
All 21 days. I mean, at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was always surprised every morning of how much of the thousands that were there to pray were young people, man.
And what they're saying, teach me how to pray, which is what your Pray First has done so well. They're teach me how to pray, and they're activating that. They're desperate. I know this even through my boys who lead small groups in our home. Teaching their friends how to pray, they're desperate for a prayer life. I think having that dynamic, actual personal connection with God has been so powerful, and not assuming they know how to do it.
I was a youth pastor back in the 80s and 90s, and we had a byline. Don't use it. I'm just telling you what it was, okay? But we used to call it for radicals only. Now that word radical means something different in this generation, but the point we were trying to make is we're not going to give you sugar cookies and balloon races.
That's right.
We're not going to put an egg on a spoon and see who can go the fastest. We're going to teach you how to go to missions trips and smuggle Bibles. We're going to teach you how to pray and pull down strongholds. We're going to what you're saying, Mark, is that students love to be called to that deeper level. They love to be challenged to the full Christian experience. You do not have to just make it Six Flags and donuts. It can be something much more real than that. So
that's great.
We actually had a lady come up to me one morning after prayer, and she's probably in her 70s, real sweet, first 21 days of prayer ever. And I just asked the question, like, what do you think about it? This is, isn't it amazing? And she said, I got out of my car, and the first thing I noticed was all the young people coming in. And she said, my heart was bursting with joy seeing young people chase after God.
Yeah, because there's the assumption that they're not interested, and that there's any message we'd want the whole podcast audience to hear is, no, man, this is the way you grow the church. They're ready for
senior
it.
pastors, lead pastors call those students to that standard, and they're looking for that in their life.
I mean, Pastor Chris mentioned, having thousands of students at prayer. Well, he said that in the room. Hey, church, aren't you proud of our students? Like any moment you get to love on them and encourage them, they keep showing up, and the church falls in love with reaching more students. And now you have this whole reaching mechanism. Everybody's doing everything they can to help out students.
So a final comment from both of you, just to encourage the audience, or maybe another tip or something you've learned, because we got to close the podcast here soon. But again, I want to encourage everybody who's listening. If any of this resonates with you and you wish you had this in your church, this is what we're going to teach on April 1st at this Grow One Day. So we want you to come. You're going to hear from these guys in the breakouts. We're all going to teach you everything we know about student ministry so that you can have this as a vibrant part of your local church. But final comment, Mark, of just anything that encourages these pastors and leaders.
Yeah, I would just say, honestly, back to Psalm 92, it's just I'll speak to high school, don't put high school ministry, almost like a paraministry, in a box separate from you. Integrate every way you can the movement that God is doing in your young people into the energy and the programming in your church. Weekend services, we celebrate for young people. Small groups, you've heard it, growth track. Weaving them and having different expressions where appropriate, but just knowing that we get those students planted in God's house, they have a lifelong journey of flourishing and growing. And so just knowing it, don't outsource it, integrate it would be my wisdom.
Bubba?
Yeah, I would just tell them, ask every student, anybody that's in the building. I got involved here at Highlands because the campus pastor took me to lunch and just said, I need you doing more, and the rest was history. So I would say to any pastor, if there's a young person, sit down with them, just tell them what to do, and they will, and just unleash them. It's messy, it's raw, they're going to fail, they're going to say terrible things. It's going to be amazing. But in the middle of that, it's just unleash them and let them do ministry.
And Matt, I probably would close with my comment that's what I did when I started Highlands. I mean, 24 years ago, we just celebrated our 24th anniversary, but I look back 24 years ago, some of the people that are the greatest leaders in our church, who are now, many of them are elders in our church in their 40s, were 19-year-olds that I was working out with and discipling and taking to lunch and believing in. And so honestly, I look back, those are my fondest memories of this church. Was, I used to do ultimate frisbee with John Larson and Kellen Coldiron when they were part of our intern program, and used to work out with them, and we'd sit around on the floor in the living room and talk about the Bible and disciple them, and then gave them responsibilities long before they were really qualified to do it, because I was developing them and trained them how to be campus pastors and leaders, and for in John's case, how to lead worship. First time he says, I'll start leading, but if you'll start the song, and I'd start the song and then pass off to. And now these are world-class leaders now that I'm so proud of. And so pastors and leaders, pour your life into young people, and you will be so grateful a couple of decades later. So.
And we're going to spend an entire day talking about all of that April 1st right here on the campus of Highlands College. And I know there's a temptation. Pastors, you're out there, you're like, hey, I'm going to send my students person. Come with them. Senior pastors,
that's great.
Get here with your
pastors
student
and student pastors need to come together.
That's right. Sure. It's going to be incredible. We'll have all the information for all that on the website. If you have any questions, email us, info@growleader.com. We're so glad you're with us. Pastor Mark, Pastor Bubba. I love that. Pastor Bubba. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next time on the GrowLeader Podcast. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and also a big thank you to all of our partners that help make the GrowLeader Podcast happen. For over 80 years, Wesleyan Investment Foundation has helped churches with their borrowing and investing needs. And whether you're dreaming of new opportunities or seeking wise resource management, we think WIF can help you. You can learn more about them at wifonline.com/growleader. For over 30 years, One Hope has partnered with churches and ministries to impact the lives of children and youth with the message of the gospel of Christ. Through collaboration with local communities worldwide, One Hope has reached over 2 billion young people in 112 countries. Discover how you could partner with them at onehope.net/growleader. If you're looking for ways to know your people better and also grow your church at the same time, you need to know about Studio C. Studio C combines strategy, technology, and communications to maximize church member engagement. You can bridge the engagement gap and transform your church's impact with Studio C, and you can learn more about them at thestudioc.org/growleader.